Hey guys, Lisa from Hello Happy back here with video 3 in my new series called How to Publish Your First Crochet Pattern. You'll probably figure out what the series is about by that name. I don't think I need to explain. We are using this pattern, which I have published for free on my blog, to figure out how to publish your first crochet pattern. Okay, so we've made it to video 3. You're finally ready to actually start crocheting your project. Woo, so here's what you need to get all settled up before you sit down, okay? All right, so first thing you need to get is your backdrop. Get your backdrop, whether that's a table you're sitting at, whether you have light colored floors, whether you have a blanket, whether you have poster board, whatever it is. Get your backdrop. You gotta have that next to you. Make sure you've got your collection of crochet hooks in case you end up changing your mind while you're working, because sometimes that does happen. Scissors, ruler, make sure your camera, and if you're using a digital notebook, make sure those are charged. You want to have those charged unless you're close enough to an outlet where a cord can reach. Charge those things, alright? Get some snacks that aren't messy, and if you are comfortable, use chopsticks to eat your snack, and then you don't have to worry about it. Get yourself water, maybe a coffee, maybe a third fun drink. Get yourself set up for success, okay? Go to the bathroom. Brush your hair. Get everything done, okay? So you can just sit and focus and be comfortable and not have to be distracted much. So there's just one more thing you have to do before you start working, and that is decide what method of note-taking and photo-taking, etc. you're going to be doing. The first method is you do everything all at once. You do the crochet, you take the photos, you take the notes, you take the measurements. The other way is to focus on making the item first and taking notes, and then making a second item following your notes, which also acts as some proofreading, which is helpful, and then taking all the photos and measurements and stuff while you make the second item. Obviously, the first method, you only need enough yarn for one thing. So it can be cost prohibitive for sure to make 2 items. But if you're making something really small and you would rather focus on the work, the second method works well for that. And also, if you're planning to make a few of them anyway to try and sell the physical products of, making a second one wouldn't hurt anyway. But I personally always do the first method because I really never want to make a second thing of anything that I produce these days. And a lot of my patterns are kind of slow and big and take a while. I can't imagine having to make a second bear tote. The thing had over 12,000 single crochet stitches. I did calculate it once because I was curious. There's no way I was going to make a second one. So, depends on the project and your personality, to be fair. So, I'm going to obviously show you how to do the all-in-one method. But I mean, you basically would just do the same thing for the other method, just kind of separately. Alright, now listen. There's a few times in this video where I talk about what I do for paid patterns versus free patterns. But I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't going to be the last time I say this, but your first several crochet patterns, you should release them as free patterns, because if you've never released patterns before, they could be a hot mess, okay? Even with testers, make your first several patterns free, please, please, please. And if that means holding off on a few ideas you have because they're really complex and you don't want to give those away for free, then just hold off on those and just brainstorm some simpler patterns that you can just, get your feet wet with. You can just test the waters, if you will. Free, okay? So here's what my final notebook page looks like when I've finished the pattern. Who the heck knows what yours is going to look like? Everyone's different, but I'm going to go through and explain everything. Alright, so you're finally ready to get started, writing down all the instructions, everything you've done. You want to definitely mark every round/row that you're doing. I find it's helpful to write the number and circle it, but do whatever works for you. These instructions are pretty clear. I am not going to be wondering later when I go to type it up how I started this, because that's exactly what I did. So then what did I do for the next round? Well, I did 12. So obviously that was an increase into each single crochet, but like I don't have to write that down. If I just write 12, like I understand what I did. If you need to write down more information, oh my God, write down more information. But like just do what you need. All right, now skipping ahead into the future, which is actually my past. You can see I did a bunch more rounds here. I took measurements after round 14 because I felt like I was going to be doing a bunch of straight rounds after that. So I thought that would be a good place for people to stop and take note of like what size it should be to keep them on the right track. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get a 4-inch marker wherever it hit 4 inches, but I didn't, to be honest, because I am mainly a paid pattern designer. So for my free patterns, honestly, I get a little bit lazy. I'm not gonna lie. But you shouldn't be lazy. You should maybe include when you were to hit 4 inches, like when that should be. Do as I say, not as I do, okay? Now, because this is just a simple shape, it's just a bucket hat with single crochet stitches, I actually didn't take any in progress photos of the hat itself because it's so simple. There's really no need for progress photos. But let me just now put up a bunch of photos collaged together from my ghost cat bag because you could see I took about 80 billion photos because it's a far more complex like construction, so it was necessary. But for something really simple like this, those photos were absolutely not necessary. You can see the photos I actually did take for this project. There's not many, but the ones I did take are useful. And then here is the end of the hat itself. I like to make sure I can tell very clearly what the last round or row is. Now I do put instructions when I stop following like a regular pattern. Like this one was an increase every 8, or it increased by 8 every time. But this one was an unusual sort of thing, so I wrote that one down. So you got to use your best judgment, like when you need to write down more like detailed notes for yourself and when you just don't. And that's something that you'll kind of figure out with time, like what you personally need to note and what you don't. But it's always best to assume that you will remember nothing, so write everything down. And next, it was time to make the ears. So I wrote down ears over here so I would know. And then for round 1, I just wrote same because it was the same process as that. And I didn't feel like writing it down again. It just wasn't necessary. So I just wrote same. And I understand what that means. So that's all I had to write down. And then here are the instructions. And this little scratch mark is my most common way of saying that's the end, by the way. Feel free to copy me. It's really high tech. And then after that, I figured out the moon. Oh, focus. This took a few different tries. I think I frogged about 6 times before I liked the shape of it. Since this piece is so small, I didn't weigh the yarn or calculate how much to use. I just call it 5 grams if it's like the teeny tiniest amount. 5 grams will do. Nobody's gonna weigh out 5 grams, right? You just go, yeah, that's probably enough. And I'm not really sure why I wrote down 5mm because that's what I used for the hat, but you know what? I wrote it down. I can't forget that I used a 5mm. Now, one of the hardest things is to remember to take photos while you are in the construction process because it's so easy to just have all the little pieces and sew them on without a care in the world and then realize, oh, I didn't take any photos. So you've got to remember to do that. I have no advice other than try. But construction photos are the only photos really I took of this project because the actual crochet was so simple. Like having any in progress photos of making it, as I said earlier, was just not, it just didn't feel necessary to me. But I've got pictures of where to sew the ears and how I like semi-permanently stuck the moon onto the hat so that it could be sewn on easier. So photos like that are key, absolutely key, but it's going to depend on the type of project you have, the number of photos that you should take. Now when your project is all finished, it'll be time to figure out how much yarn you used for everything. So I know you've been weighing and adding the skeins you've been using right here, right? You did it, right? Please tell me you did it. All right, so I added a second skein and that one weighed in at 99 grams, so I put that. Now take what's left of your final skein, or skeins if you're using multiple colors, and then subtract that from your starting amount. Mine had 61 grams left, which means I used a total of 38 grams from that skein. So that means my total yarn usage for this was 99 plus 38, which gets me 137 grams. So that is the amount I will write on the yarn requirement. And from there, if you want to, and really you should because it's helpful, you can figure out the yardage based on the grams. I'm actually going to make a video for that, but you just do a quick division and you get that number. I will make that video very soon. Alright, and that's all I have to cover in this video. If there's anything in particular you feel like I need to go into more detail with, or that you just have questions about, let me know in the comments. I don't mind making more videos. And in the next video, we will go over product photography and photo editing, which is obviously a very important step. Alright, that's it. Bye! Oh, but stay tuned for Ribbler tutorial. Yeah. Okay, so if you are doing your whole notebook on Ribbler, open your shop back up, go all the way down to the bottom, although you won't have any other patterns, but you want to click the little gear icon and then hit edit on Rebuild. And then we will be back to where we were before. All of the information you've got should still be saved, should be good to go, and then you can go right here. So now this is where you actually add your pattern info. So add a header, it's going to be the title of your pattern. So Luna bucket hat. And then what you do here is kind of up to you, but I like to just do my shop name, and then on this line here I copy and paste my terms of use, whether you want to write some yourself or what, it's going to be up to you. All right, so now here where it has the 1, you're actually going to change this by clicking the little icon that has the 2 arrows going different directions, is that changes the type of like content that it is. Go until you get to like the big title. So right here, and then this is going to be the hat, assuming that that's what you're working on. So hit hat, click there, and now you're going to start, as you start crocheting, you're going to type in what you're doing. So this is going to be, here, click on that until you get to the round instructions, put a 1 there, and then let's see, for my hat it's chain to a 6 single crochet into second chain from hook. Perfect. And then as you crochet, just keep adding new lines and the number for the row will go up automatically. Let's see, so for row or round 2, we're gonna do, let's see, increase around 12, and then 3, increase around again 24, etc., etc. When you start doing repeating patterns, I mean, I'm sure you've seen patterns before. It's like you want to do single crochet, increase around, and then whatever the count that would be. Honestly, I'm not gonna write this anymore, but this is what you want to do just as you go. And let's say you finish, and then it's time to move on to the ear instructions. So ears, and then add a new line, and then do this until you get to the row/round instructions, and then you keep going from there. If you need to add any notes after you've already entered this stuff, just hit a duplication, the X2 around here, and then hit the arrows until you change the formatting. And then let's say, if you had multiple hooks or multiple yarns, here's where you would put that, like with, or just a 5mm hook. And then you can duplicate that again and say the Juicy Couture yarn. And finally, once you get your whole pattern finished and typed up and fixed up here, and you weigh your yarn, then you can go back up here and enter the completed yarn information and anything else you have to add to the materials. So just make sure you go through and it is good to go. Now the unique thing about Ribbler is once you've got everything done here, you can scroll down and hit ready to test, and then you can just have people apply to be testers right then and there. So you can get all that done within Ribbler. I've never used it, but it's a really cool feature. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. Because now while you're working, you can actually attach photos and videos. So if you are taking photos as you go, you can literally be like, okay, I need a photo for round 4. Let's see, because I took measurements, and let's say it should be about 3 inches wide. So then I would just click the photo, and then you can just add photos right from your phone that you've hopefully been taking. So we'll take that one, and then it's really cool. Ribbler added this feature recently where you can crop them, and you can even do some basic photo editing if you need to. So if it's like not quite bright enough, you can do that. Increase the contrast. Like that's obviously too much, but I'm just doing it for this. So then you can just attach that right there, and boom, there's your helpful photo right there. So Ribbler is really cool. It's definitely something you'll have to play around with and explore yourself to see all the features, because like I'm not about to make a whole video for Ribbler, but yeah, I think you get a pretty good overview from me here. So hopefully you can figure that all out.